and welcome back to McFly's Movie House. I'm your host, Marta McFly, and today I have a very, very special guest coming on the pod. He is a award-winning filmmaker, writer. He's worked across so many mediums as well, be it comedians, musicians, actors, you name it. Nuevo Rico, his exhilarating and psychedelic cyberpunk short film, premiered at South by Southwest in 2021. And there it snagged the Animation Jury Award. And then in 2023, we got his debut feature film starring Anthony Mackie and Zoe Chao, the romantic space comedy If You Were the Last, which, by the way, I adored. So we're going to get into that later as well. He has some very exciting projects in the works. So I am welcoming the incredibly talented Kristian Mercado to the pod. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. So excited.
Of
Thank you.
course.
Just
Thank you for
listing
being
out the
here.
listing out all the accolades. I was like, oh damn, I did do those
Like,
things.
you did a lot of. If you ever want to hire me to just follow you around as your announcer before you enter any room, I mean,
I could use it. I
by all
could use
means.
like a hype man. I would love that to be a
Yeah,
director with a hype man. That would be
that'd be
next
that's that.
level.
Then you know. Then you know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Thank you for being here. There's so much I want to chat to you about today, but I always ask my guests first to highlight what they've watched recently and what we should put on our radars.
Oh, I watched Poor Things recently in the theater. I went to the Alamo Draft House in Brooklyn, which is I love
Hmm.
that theater. I just love any theater that has like a little bit of personality, like
Totally.
not just like cookie cutter theater. But I mean, every theater,
Hmm.
you know what? Every theater is cool. I don't want. Well, I'm trying to shade any theater in this landscape, but but
The
Poor
Alamo's pretty
Things.
good.
Poor Things blew me away. I was like,
Hmm.
wow. I was like, that is masterful filmmaking, and the story's amazing, and Emma Stone's performance was incredible. Mark Ruffalo's performance blew me away.
Yes,
So one of
same.
my favorite movies of the year. Yeah.
It was mine, hands down. I loved it. It makes sense that you would like it too, because it's just so colorful and all this world building, which obviously
Yeah.
you love as well. So yeah, I'm
hmm
not surprised.
It took
But
bold swings, like it's not like it's definitely like a movie I haven't seen before, like it's like
hmm
just like so bold in the chances it takes, and even the cinematography choices, and man, I was blown away. Yeah.
Totally, I know. Well, first things first, let's retrace some steps and go way, way back. So you were raised, from what I understand, between New York, Spanish Harlem, and Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And you told me that film was a huge part of your life growing up, and that family was kind of your entry point to this exciting world of cinema. So, can you chat briefly about what film means to your family and how their love for it nurtured yours?
It was like a very common language in my family, where everything was almost like the biggest event you can go to, or the biggest thing you can do in my family was watch a movie together or go to the theater. And I even have like vague impressions of watching like film with my dad, of all people, like even when I was like two or something. Like I have the imprint of like Halloween playing. I know a 2 year old watching Halloween, that's messed up, but
I
all
was
right,
gonna
whatever.
say, nice.
Halloween, like the shot of the pumpkin and the bugs or
Yeah,
whatever. Like
yeah.
I remember that on like a CRT TV on top of a wooden drawer, and I still have the memory of that. And I
Wow.
was sitting on my dad's lap when he was
Mhm.
watching it, and it's like I remember that feeling. And it was also like when I was in Puerto Rico, my mom, basically every weekend we would just watch a different movie, like a new movie, and
Wow.
tickets were so cheap. They were like $4. So like you could kind of take the whole family to watch a movie basically, and
Hmm.
it was like the most exciting thing. And then like my family's kind of chaotic, so like in a way, like even in all that chaos, it felt like whenever there was a movie playing, everything would chill out. So like
Hmm. Hmm.
you can absolutely put on Back to the Future in my family, like my household, and everyone will stop what they're doing to watch it. And it's like kind of like
That's
consistent. So like yeah, it almost became like a translation, like a love language in a way, like where I was like, oh, my family loves this. I want them to
hmm.
love me.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that so much. Are there any other films, I guess, besides Halloween, that you remember
Oh,
that stuck with you from these formative years and that inspire
uh,
you still?
well, back when I was growing up, they used to do like matinee screenings of old movies,
Mm.
so like
Yep.
my dad was really into Rocky, so I saw that in the theaters.
Nice.
And that was like the first movie I saw in theaters. Rocky 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like it was like obviously it hadn't come out or anything. It was just like a
Mm.
re-screening of it, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it left a big impression on me. Um
Mm-hmm.
that was a big one. Oh, oddly enough, at 14, watching the Sci-Fi Network late at night, like at 1 a.m., 2 a.m.,
Yeah.
they would play Akira, yeah,
Oh,
the
nice.
anime,
I love. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah,
that
I was
that was a big
actually.
one.
That's a good one. I'm a huge anime fan myself, so
Oh,
yeah,
hell
I can't
yeah.
imagine that was on this sci-fi channel. For me, it was TCM as a kid instead of the sci-fi
Uh,
channel. Yeah.
yeah, it
Um,
was it was mind blowing because I felt like I discovered something like forbidden or something, Like I was like,
totally.
I'm supposed to be watching this. It's so late. My parents are asleep.
Hmm.
Oh man, like, am I gonna get caught watching this wild, I don't know, slightly political anime?
That was me with American Pie when my parents rented it, and I was like hiding behind the staircase, wondering what is this?
Yeah.
Way too young. But let's move on. So, what would you say drives you at the very core as a filmmaker?
That's a good question.
Hmm.
I think like a deep desire to connect with an audience, I guess, like or people. Like, um, I feel like I have a like real life is hard. I don't know, like this is like a hard thing to navigate, but then like I feel like with through film I can kind of navigate the world a little bit better somehow. Like I
Hmm.
just feel like more like in my own skin, more
Hmm.
accepted. I feel like more myself, I guess.
Hmm.
So I feel like it's kind of like a deep desire to like connect and like to explore themes that I care about. So like bring joy to people is a big
Hmm.
one, or make people feel seen. Hopefully, I think like
Hmm.
as a big fan, like I think like a lot of movies, I'll watch it and then like if I see myself in the film, I'm like, oh, cool, like I like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just something that is so rewarding about that, and I don't know. I hope I can just give that to someone else,
Hmm.
So that's kind of like where my head is at, I guess. Like, I just want people to experience the same joy I felt, watching film.
Yeah, I completely see that as well in your work. There is that through line of just connecting emotionally with the viewer. I mean, I even felt that in Nuevo Rico as well. So actually,
Yeah,
perfect segue to talk about that now.
yeah,
I threw that on the other day, and just immediately that explosion of colors, the reggaeton, just this incredible world you built. I was like, what's going on? I love this so much. And like you said, you're a fan of Akira. I feel like there was some influence
oh
there,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah,
Ghost in a Shell. I
yep.
mean, what were some of these were these sources of inspiration, I guess, and
Oh,
how did you come
totally.
up with the idea for it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was definitely like inspired by like things I used to watch as a kid and like 80s
Mm-hmm.
cartoons, like anything
Mm-hmm.
from like Thundercats to like He-Man to like Akira to just even just reggaeton as like or and Sun Ra, the jazz
Yeah.
musician.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of love psychedelic like music and like sometimes I think of reggaeton as psychedelic music, So like
Oh,
I was
cool.
just trying to connect that, and then I
Mm-hmm.
love cyberpunk. Like Neuromancer is like my one of my favorite books. So like
Mm-hmm.
I go back to that book all the time. I just constantly read it. Like it's just like such a great fit, like book. And I love the cyberpunk genre because it's like very like hyper intersectional. Like even though like a lot of cyberpunk is like white male authors. Like they're like incredibly diverse books because like you could be like half cyborg and half Indonesian and half I don't know like something else. Like everything's like so mixed and
Yeah.
like and it's very organic and it's almost like looking
Yeah.
at the culture like in a very vast like almost like even the barriers of gender are loose in
Mm-hmm.
cyberpunk the the barrier between technology and human or
Mm-hmm.
the soul and human or race and class like there's just a lot of like so many intersectionalities that happen to it and then the scene that always inspired me in Neuromancer was like uh and like almost like when they're about to go to the final destination they have to stop at this space station called Zion that's run by
Hmm.
Rastafarians, and I was just like, that's like just a vibe. Like I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like in the future, there are like Jamaicans in space running a space station, and they have
Hmm.
to make the pit stop there, and that stuck with me a lot. And I was like, oh, what would be like Puerto Rico's version of that?
That's so cool. Oh, I didn't even that didn't even register for me, but now that you mention it, I want to go back and watch it again with that in my mind. But can you say anything about the feature that's going to come out of Nuevo Rico?
Well, it's been it's in development a little bit. I don't know what is gonna happen with it, but like
Hmm.
we're still trying to figure a path towards the future. I mean, imagine like to be honest, it will probably be like kind of like somewhere in like in between like the indie, like sort of like somewhere like indie space, probably most
Uh-huh.
likely. So I'm trying to figure it out. It takes a lot. Like sometimes movies take like like years to develop, so like it's not like it happens overnight sometimes. I
Yep.
was really excited because I did have a lot of traction with Nuevo Rico. Like it was definitely like a short that people were like really in love with, and like I definitely talked to a lot of people because of it. And but like I think like I'm trying to figure out what how it looks as a feature, and I've been working on it for a while, so hopefully I'll get it there eventually.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to keep my eyes out for that because I love the short. But let's move on to your debut feature, If You Were the Last, which, like I said, this blew me away. For myself, I'm very picky with romantic comedies. And when I initially read the letterbox description for this about two astronauts, stuck in space, no chance of survival, and they're debating if they want to make their friendship into something more, that's unique. Like that is such a unique premise.
Yeah.
And I was watching everything unfold. I was struck at how relatable and human it felt because it felt like an accurate portrayal of what our generation would be like in space. It's not these like stuffy men, these astronauts that are just so serious. Like it was just personable. And I'm wondering if that's something that you consciously sought out to do to make an absurd situation seem relatable, or was that just a result of forming these close relationships with your cast?
Mm, that's a good question. It's probably a mix, actually, because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely there on the page, for sure, like in the writing. But I was like thinking about how to perform. Like, I definitely wanted them to have like a good cadence and a good like energy, and like I feel like I'm a goofy person sometimes, so like um, I kind of wanted to like infuse that goofiness into the movie a little bit. I don't know if goofy is the right word, but like something like like there's just like a
Yeah,
vibe. There's a vibe
playful.
that's like playful or like just like a little bit like not too serious, I guess sometimes, but can get serious at times. And so like I was just trying to like find that energy. Definitely with Anthony and Zoe, they were just like very kindred spirit energy. Like they just felt like
Hmm.
they were just buds from the get go. So I was like, oh yeah, this will work. Like, because a lot of it is just really trying to capture friendship. I mean, I think I modeled it too a lot after some of my friendships, like or and some of my relationships too. If I'm honest, like I was just trying to like kind of capture the feeling. So I think to get the feeling, you have to kind of be open and vulnerable to like what your own experiences are and let them be
Hmm.
reflected in an earnest way. So like I think I was just trying to like do that, I guess. Yeah. Hopefully, I
I
mean, I
mean,
hope I succeeded. I don't know.
absolutely. I mean, as you were saying, it is a romance film, but at its core, to me, it was a film about friendship, like you said.
Hmm.
So, I mean, what does friendship mean to you then? Simple question,
Oh
kind of.
man, that's a deep question. Oh
Yeah. I
wow,
know.
I love that. That's one of the best questions I've ever gotten, actually.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
yeah. What does friendship mean to me? Wow, I think it's one of the most precious things there is in life. Like friendship is like chosen family. Friendship is, I mean, there's definitely tiers of friendship for sure. Like it's not like one thing necessarily, but like when I was reading a lot about friendship when I was making this movie from like all different philosophies, and there's this idea of like friendship of virtue, which is like almost
Hmm.
like borderline like a soulmate. That's kind of like in my head that's kind of like the friendships that I value or seek out, where it's based on like similar values or interests or like it's someone who makes you feel safe and warm and like, yeah, friendship. I feel like, we're like kind of plagued in a time where like male loneliness is at an all-time high, and like I think historically men haven't formed like really strong bonds, like friendship bonds. Like I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of like men like tend to like depend on romantic relationships for their kind of like substance, and like
Mm-hmm.
I find that, and obviously you can never fully generalize, but I find that with women they tend to make stronger bonds, with friends, and like keep a stronger friend group. So like I feel like over the long term, it's kind of like it comes with a lot of benefits. Like you're just like, you're more supported. You're not like completely alone. So like, I don't know. It's not really something I care about. Like it's something I'm always working towards and trying to like be better at as well. And yeah, friendship is like one of the key moments. It's like one of the most important things in life. Yeah.
I agree. No, that was a perfect answer. I don't even know what I would have given, but your answer was now what I'm gonna keep saying going forward. I want to talk about the retrofuturism for a second in the
Yeah.
movie. Your attention to detail again, just wild. I don't know if you're a gamer, but
Yeah.
kind of at times the retrofuturism reminded me of the Fallout series,
That's
where
awesome.
where the set design felt so retro yet
Yeah.
so ahead of its time that you forget that they're in space. Like you go into the kitchen, you see that the colors match, the appliances match, the paint on the walls, it just all blends.
Yeah.
And it just feels like this little retro home. And then just the little attentions to detail, like Benson and his coffee mug, or her coffee mug, sorry. So I'm curious, what was the process like of building this unique space? And did you have any sort of points of cinematic references for that?
Mm. It was definitely a challenge. That was probably one of the hardest parts, like kind of putting together the world, like world
Mm-hmm.
building it, and like I know I set out to like make like a space film that felt different, like I just wanted it not to be like the same movie you've seen before. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
space is very like well, like it gets something in cinema that has been explored a lot, right? So like you have like a huge vocabulary and lexicon for what space looks like most audiences do. So I was
Mm-hmm.
really trying to challenge that, and I was definitely looking towards more kind of like almost like treating it like a Valentine, like where it's like this handmade thing, like where it has more like organic texture. I was definitely pulling more from like the ethos of 90s cinema, where like I think
Mm-hmm.
people in the 90s were like more experimental about like
Yes.
those kind of choices and like how to like like sometimes film can flatten out if people follow the same trends all the time, like if everyone starts shooting the same way and everyone starts doing the same stuff, it really becomes harder to notice the differences between different films. Like I think when I watch movies in the 90s, there's just so much distinct cinema,
Yep.
even like within movie to movie to movie. Like you're not really like at least for the American canon of cinema, it's not like you're like expecting the same thing somehow in the 90s. Like maybe there were movies that were similar, but like I just feel like there was something about it that is always like, oh, this is a new movie,
Mm-hmm.
this is a new movie, this is a new movie, and the premise is different, and the look is different, and the choices being made are more bold. So I definitely looked at the 90s as kind of like a reference point for the, and then a lot of it was also like trying to create like a cozy space for them. Like this is a horrible situation, but then like you like offset it by like contrasting, like I love contrast. Like I love putting things that are polar opposites together. Like when you say retro future, it's like literally that, like the past and the present, you know terrible
Mm-hmm.
and great,
Mm-hmm.
happiness and sadness. I always try to put them together. Even Nuevo Rico is like kind of old meets new, like there's kind
Totally.
of it's like a theme I think in a lot of my work actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed that as well, especially with the retro sort of screens that appear in Nuevo Rico, also appear in If
Yeah.
You're the Last as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and
But when
one of the animators from Nuevo Rico does the voice of the computer in If You Were the Last.
Oh, that's so interesting. I know that
Uh,
I love that. Oh, very cool. I was wondering that
Angie.
voice actually stuck out to
She
me
has a
as
great
well.
voice. She has
Yeah,
such a
yeah.
cool, like cute, like weird voice. Like I remember,
I
like
loved
I
it.
just like feel like she has an animator's voice basically, and I was like, hey, you want to voice this computer in my movie? And she was like, yeah.
Uh, One thing that I thought was really clever in the movie, and you kind of touched on it with your answer there, is you give us a sense of comfort and homeliness. And then there's that one scene where Zoe's character loses her music and everything goes silent. And it's just this blunt slap that we as viewers feel
Yeah,
like, oh shit, this is a shitty situation. And
totally.
then what Anthony's character does, and I don't want to spoil it for listeners, but I started sobbing. I genuinely just tears were bawling my eyes out. And the more I thought about it, I realized you do offer hints throughout, even with your visuals as well, where we're brought back to moments of reality of what's going on, what the real situation is. So I'm wondering, is there always going to be this somber underlying layer to your work of mixing the colorful and the exaggerated with this bluntness? Because that was in your short film as well, I think.
Yeah. I think that's like definitely something that I like, like I feel like I'm always trying to seek out like both, like I want to kind of always have something real there, Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
always seeking out like something real, but it's interesting because like maybe it is true to, I don't know. I've been talking to my therapist a lot lately. And she was like, she tells me like you have to like, she talks a lot about like the expectations of reality versus fantasy, and that like sometimes people can like, imagine an idealized thing, right? And but that feels real, like an idealization
Mm-hmm.
can feel real to the person, experiencing it. So I think like even in this movie, I think a lot about like that idea of idealization of image, but how it feels real at the time, like you're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing that and that idealization is real at the moment. And who is anyone to say otherwise, I guess, But then like the
Mm-hmm.
starkness of reality and like, I don't know. I think those are things that just because of who I am, because I am definitely like a hopeless like romantic type. Like I'm a very hopeless like idealist, But then I'm also like
Same.
very cynical realist at the same time. Like I can kind of
Mm-hmm.
just almost like accept that I have like a very whimsical personality, but then sometimes like offset it with like, but
Mm-hmm.
very practical. Like this is like, it's like, but always like I always champion the idealization because again, like I feel like even with my practical brain, it's like, oh, that's like worth it because that's what like where the magic of life comes from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you really understand how to just convey loneliness in cinema and just these relatable quandaries that revolve around mental health as well. And I just think that's a wonderful skill to have as a filmmaker. Do you think that you'll tackle mental health even in a more overt way in your upcoming
Yeah.
projects? Or...
Oh, 100%. Like I
Mm-hmm.
did it in that short Mela, like and the feature definitely tackles it a little bit too, where like
Mm-hmm.
the lead protagonist in that deals a lot with mental health and in in sometimes overt ways and like like and other times subtle, so like it's just like it's definitely like probably my me tackling that the most, yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
that's meant to be a feature film at some point too, so I'm working towards it right now, but like
Towards it all.
yeah, I kind of
Yeah,
juggle a lot, yeah.
no kidding.
But I don't
Do you
know, it's
find
like being busy.
Do you find that mental health,
Hmm.
incorporating that in your work, is that therapeutic for you?
Definitely, yeah. Like I think it's cool. Like I don't know. I think people should like definitely have more conversations surrounding that, especially like Latino community is particular. Well, any marginalized community that maybe has less access to mental health services and
Mm-hmm.
or aren't like where it's not like completely accepted in the same way sometimes. Like I think like for a
Mm-hmm.
long time my mom was really like skeptical of like medication and stuff like that. Like you're always like, oh, don't get on meds, don't get on meds. It's like kind of hammered into like the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but sometimes people need a little help. So like, I don't know, it's interesting. Yeah, I think like mental health awareness is like a kind of an important thing in general, actually. Yeah, and but then also like I've also kind of gotten to a point too where like I'm also a little bit, this is me. I'm a Gemini. Like you could tell, like I just go both
My best
polarities.
friend is a Gemini, so I love it. I'm here for it.
I'm now also like sometimes I'm skeptical of it too. Sometimes where I'm
Yeah.
like, you know, like because I do think like mental health is so like it's institutionally like such a white thing, you know. So there's like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it feels harder to find like things that are, you know, maybe considering like some things that culturally you might be dealing with differently or something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I sometimes and like I also think now people are getting almost over therapized to the point where like, you know, everyone talks like they're a therapist and like sometimes that like kind of makes it hard to make any human connection, you
Yes,
know?
absolutely.
You know, the
Uh,
minute like someone feels like, oh, you know, something, you know, you fold the napkin the wrong way, and they're like, oh, that's toxic. And I'm like, whoa,
yeah.
whoa, that was just a napkin. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's that serious.
Oh man, no, I know exactly what you mean. Oh, I'm gonna take us out of this
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah,
downward serious turn, but we will return to it. But what would be your top three songs, let's say, if you were stuck in a spaceship with no idea if you're ever gonna get home?
Holy shit! What?
I
That's a
I
tough
know.
one. Uh, Pharoah Sanders' "Floating Points" probably
Hmm.
would be like one of those songs in that album. Uh, Sharon Van Etten, Jupiter 4,
Hmm.
and maybe a Marika Hackman song, maybe Emmanuel from her like Christmas album. Whoa, those
Hmm.
are really interesting three pulls.
Those were those were so niche. I'm gonna have to check these out after. That's why I
Yeah,
actually asked the question. It was more so for selfish reasons. Um, but also, you are, I mean, obviously a film buff, but you injected pop culture flourishes in If You Were the Last, especially with our
yeah.
leads debating constantly over what movies they're gonna watch. So I know other interviews have asked you about your top movies to take with you to space. We're gonna be different. I'm wondering, what are your favorite movies of romantic missed connections or the sort of that are like right place, wrong time? Because for a while your movie goes in that direction as well.
Right place, wrong time. Right place,
Hmm.
wrong time. The Before trilogy pretty much hits pretty hard, I think. Like,
Yep.
um, hmm. Oddly enough, Chasing Amy, like when I was growing up, had a deep impact on me. I used
Hmm.
to obsess over the Holden McNeil like trying to convince her to like fall in love with her in the rain conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's when I fell in love with Ben Affleck straight up. I was like, damn Affleck, you're dope.
It's romantic. Yeah, exactly.
And then Misconnection. So deep. Damn, that's tough.
Hmm.
Trying to think of like a movie that fucks me up.
Oh,
Maybe
there's countless for me.
what was it?
I said there's countless for me movies that mess me up like that. Oh, just like
Yeah,
give me a list.
I definitely like. I mean, I love that feeling actually. To be honest, like
Hmm.
maybe like and like it's just like it's always nice to feel that.
Yep.
I can't think of a movie right now for some reason, but I will say like maybe a book that I've read that recently that hits that way is
Hmm.
Normal People, and I know that they made it a show, and I haven't seen the show, but I read the
I
book,
haven't
and that
either.
one hit that way for me.
I'll try to grab that for myself. It's been on my book club watch list or read
It's
list, I
good.
should say. I can
I read that
imagine.
book and I was like, damn, I'm so sad that it's already been adapted because like
You
I
would
would
have.
love to.
Yeah.
That's like the vibe. Like I would love to make something like that.
Yeah, it makes sense in your the way after this movie, it makes sense that you would want to do something like that. But as well as being, I guess, a phenomenal feature film debut, obviously, if you were the last, it just has this quality of feeling like a beautiful portfolio that highlights all of your strengths. And I remember I was watching it and I was like, this is so funny. The comedic beats hit perfectly. And then I'm like, of course they do. He directed, so many comedy specials. And then the
Yeah.
music selection as well is just like sensual and infectious. And I'm like, yeah, of course it is. This guy has directed music videos and he's worked with so many talented musicians. So I
Wow.
just feel like, is there anything else that you took from your past experiences that you molded into this film?
Wow, you nailed it there. That's crazy. That's really observant.
Thank you.
I
It's my
did like
job.
I definitely put like a cauldron of like all the things. Like I love
Hmm. A culture.
like it's like I love jumbo, you know, like gumbo,
Hmm.
like kind of like the
Yep, yep,
mixing of
yep.
things. Like
Hmm.
I'm very like mixed media. Like I'm very like a very big like philosophical like bricolage guy. Like you know, which
Hmm.
is the idea of collage, like the French
Yep.
concept of collage, you know. And so like um, I always take every discipline and everything I explore and really try to utilize it. And since it was my first
Hmm.
feature, I definitely was like, oh, I got to do everything that makes me unique as a person or as a director, really, in this. So whether it be like stop motion animation, like, you know, like absurdity, comedic timing. I learned a lot of comedic timing from comedians, just being in
Hmm.
comedy shows and just always being around comedians, because that's a big part of my scene. If I'm honest, like I'm always, you know, if I'm bored, I just go to a comedy show and hang out. Pretty much, that's kind of like my vibe, you know. And
Yeah.
but I always observe and learn, and I'm always like kind of because I'm also like, even though I like work with a lot of top comedians, I'm also like always exploring new emerging comics, you know, because
Hmm.
I feel like the that's kind of like the fertilizer. It's like, oh, here's like where comedy's gonna go towards, you know, so you can
Yep.
kind of see where it's heading. So I always
Hmm.
want to be a little bit ahead of the curve, you know, on stuff. And then musically, I go to a lot of vinyl like shops, you know. Like I actually
Nice.
for a long time I didn't have Spotify. I didn't have anything that was like algorithmic based because
Hmm.
I was always fearful of algorithms flattening out your taste, you know.
Hmm.
Honestly, I literally only got Spotify when I made this movie because the playlist where we were sharing it was a
Yeah.
Spotify link, and I was like, all
Oh,
right, I
you
gotta get
got it.
Spotify to work on this movie. But prior to that, I was always like a person who like valued like finding music somehow organically or like
Hmm.
in a place or like I almost cherish obscurity over popularity of music, you know? Like
Hmm.
I was like, what's like the gem, you know? Like I always want the
Hmm.
gem, you know? So and I think I littered this movie with a lot of that. Like I was trying to
Yeah.
find songs that were like you would think you heard them before somehow. Like you would be like, oh, like you don't know this song, but it's like, but it sounds like a song I should know, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're like classics, but they're not, you know. Obviously, we sprinkled
Totally.
a couple of like legit classics, but like
Yeah.
I was always looking for like the weirdness. Did I take us on a tangent? I don't remember what the question
No,
was.
what was the, no, I think you answered the question. It was all about your past experiences and how they molded into this. And yeah, I
Oh
mean,
right,
it's a cauldron of everything that you've done. So no,
yeah.
you
Oh,
did answer it.
and reading a lot, and I write a lot of
Hmm.
love stories too, and like I write scripts that are like kind of in that space too. So like
Hmm.
even though I didn't write the script for this, shout out to Angela Burrasa, who's so talented. She wrote the
Yes.
script, and I would
Hmm.
not be making this movie if not for her. But like, yeah, yeah, like I write like when I do my own writing, I write a lot of that stuff too, like
Hmm.
that energy, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing that you mentioned there as well that I really appreciated was the usage of stop motion in the movie, and that's something that made me smile as well, especially like the spaceship, the planets, et cetera, et cetera. And it put a smile on my face because I feel like what I love is when present day filmmakers these days take that warm sensibility of making things by hand instead of slapping on CGI and calling it a day. And was this something that you knew from the start you would do when you read the script, and
Hmm.
actually, would you ever consider doing a movie entirely in stop motion?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Oh,
Easy
100%.
peasy.
Like I would
Yeah.
give me a stop motion movie, I'll go nuts. I would die, like legit. I would be so sick. Like it's funny, I never thought about it till you just mentioned it, but yeah, I would love to make a
Oh.
stop motion movie. Like just straight up. Like I love Pinocchio recently, the Guillermo del
Hmm.
Toro one.
Yep, yep,
I
yep.
was really, really moved by that. Like I was just like, whoa, like you can make this kind of movie in stop motion because it's kind of
Hmm.
serious, you know. Like I was like blown
Absolutely.
away. You know, a lot of what Leica makes too is like super inspiring. I almost worked at
Hmm.
Leica.
Oh.
Like yeah, like they were back when I was doing more like commercials and stuff. They were
Hmm.
like they had a commercial division and they were looking to hire directors, you know. So I would have to move to Portland and which sounds
Hmm.
kind of like a weird adventure, but for whatever reason it didn't work out at the
Yep.
time. I mean, I was still like pretty early in my career, I guess, and I was, hesitant to move and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I really admire their work, and I love that they just make really unique films. That's always
Yep.
cool. And I love Fantastic Mr. Fox. That's like one of my
That's
all-time
what I was
favorites.
thinking. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like when I read the script, I always felt like it wanted to have a whimsy. So like it was always going to be like part of my journey, and I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted it to feel uniquely like it's a film that like only I can make, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I loved about it too, and yeah, it was so unique, and yeah, it's one of those movies that you can return to, and it doesn't matter how much time has passed because it's those qualities like that make it timeless to me at least. Um,
Thanks. Yeah, that's like I was aiming for it. Like I want my films to have a timeless quality. Like if I
hmm
can get there. Because I do think like a lot of movies that I love, they're kind of movies you can always return to. Like there's always like something about it that's timeless, and you're like, not. It's not like I don't know. They age well.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you mean. From this, one thing that you and I connected over is our love of food and
Oh
food
yeah,
in cinema.
I love
So I
food.
remember, yeah, same. I watched your short film, the one that you did in collaboration with DoorDash, which
Oh
shined a
yeah, yeah,
light
yeah.
on the
That was
restaurants
so
in New York
fun.
City and their importance. Yeah, just the connection to community. So you also told me that you're putting foodie touches in your next film. So I'm curious, do you use food as a cinematic tool to bring characters together and foster that sort of sense of community?
I think like it's just a good. It's just like how do I say it? I think you put food in a movie, you're like gonna win. Like people love food, like they
Yeah,
just
yeah.
do. So like you just seeing it, having it be part of it, like
Mm-hmm.
even like when Pitt is always eating like all the time, like like he's always like oh peanut butter or like eating an
Yeah,
apple
yeah,
or
yeah.
something like as a acting choice, but it makes
Yeah,
him so compelling to watch. Like you're just like oh I'm
totally.
in. Like it's
Yeah.
like there's something about that. I love the movie Chef, for instance, too. Like the way
Yes.
the shot on it. Tom Poco.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
My
love
favorite.
that movie. Yeah, I love that. Like that's yeah, anything that has like food in it. I think it's just like a very common love language, and like
Mm-hmm.
and it is a way to connect people. But you can story tell too, because like
Mm-hmm.
even like Tarantino, the way he uses food is like to showcase like power dynamics within characters.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
With Pulp
Like
Fiction especially as well.
Pulp Fiction, Inglorious Bastards with the milk
Mm-hmm.
and like
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah,
cake.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's like a way to like. There's a lot you can say with food without having to say it. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just like a way to tell a story in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Are there
And
any
if you were the
other?
last, oh sorry, go
So
ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
If you were the last, I was like definitely putting a lot of eggs in it. Eggs was like kind of like the main food communication going on in that
Mm-hmm.
movie.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of that going on. Or even like with the goat, that's kind of like a
Yep.
really happy, sad, like weird. I mean, I think it's heartbreaking, but like
Yeah.
it's interesting. And yeah, and the chickens, and there's just something cool about it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Or do you have any other favorite foodie films besides Chef and Tampopo?
Hmm. Oh, that's
Are
a good
those kind of the
question.
two? Yeah.
Um, I'd have to think about that. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
chocolate maybe? Does that count?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Chocolat.
Yeah, I mean it's chocolate's edible. So
The
yeah, no,
first
those
Willy
are
Wonka. The first Willy
yeah.
Wonka, all about
Yep.
candy.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Um,
man.
Actually, I should put a playlist of like movies that have like a theme about food, but you don't think about it. Like Willy Wonka's a
Yeah.
funny pick, actually, but it's totally
Mm-hmm.
about like a factory full of candy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And what I love about you, and I think it's important to touch on, it just made sense to touch on, is your dedication to highlighting filmmakers and creatives from marginalized communities. And you champion for inclusivity in the industry on a daily basis on your socials. Literally, whenever I log on to that app.
Yeah, I feel like some people must be tired to be like, damn, this
No,
motherfucker keeps doing
no.
this.
As you should. But in the same, I guess, sort of space or
Yeah.
connection, if there was one thing you could change about the film industry, what would that be? And there is a follow-up to this too.
What would I change?
Yeah.
Mm, at least in America, I would probably
Mm-hmm.
change like the way the economics of it work, just because like it's definitely like too like quantified in a way that doesn't permit people to take bold chances as much, you know? So like
Mm-hmm.
at least particular in this time where you have like a lot of algorithmic data and like a lot of data collection and like mining and like people know almost too much, you know,
Yeah.
like almost too much information. So like you're basically sometimes people are making movies based on like oh this is how it gets made because this has been successful in the past. And I would totally get. I would love for it not to be like a purely capitalistic endeavor. You know, like
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like probably like sacrilege to somebody. Like, there's some movie executive going, "That guy sucks," by me saying that. But you know, I understand that like films have to like sort of make money to exist. You know, like I understand they're in an
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem, but I think like this probably like I think an era before this like the way it worked was more like you had like a safe bet and then you would take like a bunch of swings, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like you knew this movie would do well, so then it allowed
Mm-hmm.
you to do like I don't know, five or six different movies that were like completely different. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like people are doing that as much anymore, you know, like it's almost like now it's like five safe bets and maybe one unique one, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
I would love for it to change. The ratio would change, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like foreign cinema it has like a better like relationship to like how they get made. You know, sometimes they're smaller budgets, sometimes they're more personal. They're more
Mm-hmm.
figuring it out. In America, it's just like tight. It's because it's so much like a system, you know. So like filmmaking is such a system here. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is independent cinema. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's plenty of it. But even independent cinema here is like pretty like high. Like it's hard to make movies here. You know, like it's just tough.
Mm-hmm.
And so the barriers of entry are just so high. And like it kind of feels like a miracle when someone does get through. You know, so like I would love for there to be a way for like the economics to play less into it. I guess you know, like where
Mm-hmm.
it would be more like if there was like a way for it to just function so that like more people could kind of get the opportunity and like more people could like you know come from unique places and unique backgrounds
Mm-hmm.
like when I was growing up and when I was like learning about film, I think like the filmmakers that I respected, they all kind of had a blue collar kind of feeling, you know, like I don't know, Martin Scorsese was kind of like
Mm-hmm.
on the street level type guy, or
Yeah.
Sidney Lumet was like kind of like making film for the people, and I kind of love that kind of grit to filmmaker, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
I want filmmakers that come from like interesting places to make movies, you know?
Totally.
So, yeah, that's the one thing I would change. Probably like
Mm-hmm.
maybe diversify like where the filmmakers come from and like who they
Mm-hmm.
are and make it accessible and maybe more unique. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
No.
asking for a lot.
That's the perfect answer. That's exactly what I wanted to hear because I guess the follow-up question is let's say you leave this interview and you go into a world where all of this has taken effect, what you just said. So,
Yeah.
what's different about your internal experience or your external conditions? So, by that I mean internal experience, I mean sensations or emotions, where external would be like people, places, systems that are now different.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I guess I would feel happy. Yeah. Like I would probably feel like damn, like it's happening.
Yeah,
Maybe who
fair.
knows what, but you know, like everything changes, and then there's always something else that emerges. You know, so like you really never
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
Um, like I don't know, like Japan feels like a utopic paradise, right? Like on paper, but then like you know, there's high rates of suicide. There's also like a population problem. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just
Mm-hmm.
an example. Like you can make the most perfect thing happen, and then suddenly things that you don't expect kind of emerge, so like
Mm-hmm.
who knows, like I don't know, like I mean there will always be some type of conflict, like I think that's just how things work, like you
That's
just
just
like
life.
that's life, yeah, like
Yeah.
there's always going to be, I mean, we're so far from like an ideal like space anyway, like I don't even know if it'll be in my lifetime that I'll see something like more equitable. Maybe like Gen
Mm-hmm.
Z is pretty diverse, like
Yep.
and I imagine Generation Alpha is even more so. So like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the way people look at storytelling and want to see themselves, because I think to be honest, I think the most radical cinema that will happen is just the like when people of color and women and even trans people get to like have ownership of cinema in a way
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't have to be gate kept by like people in power or they
Yeah.
become the people in power, then like
Mm-hmm.
you'll have kind of like a new film revolution, because so much of cinema historically has been filtered through like white male gaze, like pretty
Absolutely.
much. And so, even though I love a lot of cinema that's like done by white dudes, because I fucking love Martin Scorsese, I love Tarantino,
Yep.
like, but it'd be cool to see like people emerge with those like strong voices from different backgrounds. And you do see it more and more, like Ryan Coogler,
Mm-hmm.
um, obviously, and like some other people that have emerged, that have those powerful voices, So like
Mm-hmm.
it will happen and is happening, and I think it's just exciting to think about like what those movies will look like or be like.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's such a hopeful answer. And yeah, I really like that. I really like that. So I know you can't talk too much about this, but it's been announced that you're working on the upcoming Cheech and Chong biopic.
Oh
I
yeah,
think you are just such a perfect fit for this. Your work just visually feels so magical and colorful. And as we touched on earlier, actually, with If You Were the Last, it's a romance, yeah, but it's also a powerful story of friendship. And with Cheech and Chong, I mean, I would assume that's also a powerful story about friendship. So, from what I understand, you're tracing back to their early days and them meeting and the rise of their careers. What about this project fascinated you and made you want to do it?
well, I love Cheech and Chong. They were kind of
Yeah.
like the guys who created stoner comedy, and I think it's kind of
Yes.
important to like remind people of that. I think like because obviously like people like Judd Apatow and like Seth
Mm-hmm.
Rogen and even Kevin Smith have made like huge careers off the stoner comedy, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting to just go back to the root of it, like
Yeah.
those original movies, and I still watch
Yeah.
them. Like I'm like so fascinated by it, like, but I also see like they're so interesting because they were so iconoclastic at the time, because people were getting locked up for weed, like with serious charges when they were around, and they were like super advocates of it, So like, but like that's like such a powerful thing about comedy. Like you can talk about
Mm-hmm.
the thing you're not supposed to talk about in a different time,
Yeah.
So like, it's super cool to see them be such rebels, and like, I just love the rebel, like as a figure, like even in cinematically or in life, like I love
Mm-hmm.
the person who's like the counterculture person, like the person who's like fighting against the grain. Like I get inspired
Yeah.
by that a lot, and I like documentation of like the history of comedy. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
a super deep comedy nerd, and I'm the type of dude who's like watching like comedy specials you don't think about per se,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm always seeking out like certain like obscure comedy records, or I'm like always fascinated by like, oh, how did someone's career start, or like little weird things, like Jim Carrey used to sleep in the Comedy Store, things like that. He used to shower there because he was like homeless for a little bit,
Whoa.
I think. Yeah,
Oh,
like
I
things
had
like
no idea.
weird, like there's just weird stuff that happens like that I'm always
Yeah.
fascinated by. Or like I love when um Robin Williams did a 1 hour show at the Met, which is
Mm-hmm.
incredible. Like that's such a
Mm-hmm.
weird thing. Like he did it at the Met. Like like
Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I'm
Huh.
always fascinated by that. So like the first class of the Groundlings worked with Cheech and Chong. So that's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
interesting. So there's just like interesting things about even just documentation of the history of comedy, and like
Mm-hmm.
them as an act and what their place is in comedy. I think is really important.
Yeah. You just blew my mind, actually. You were mentioning Seth Rogen. He's from Vancouver, and you're right, he does do stoner comedy. But didn't Cheech and Chong also meet in Vancouver? I think
Oh, yeah,
so.
you do know a lot about it. I'm not giving spoilers, but yeah.
Oh, fair, fair. Are you heading out this way for the project? Can you tell us that much?
It would make sense, like it
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
cool actually. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe. Okay. Well, keep me
Maybe.
posted because that's where I'm based.
That's funny that you knew that. That's so crazy. How do you know that?
I mean, I feel like Vancouverites, whenever somebody's famous for something on a grand scale, we know. Like,
Oh yeah,
we'll
yeah, yeah.
know. We'll know the people.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, 100%. No,
Yeah.
yeah, they did. They did meet there.
That's a
Yeah.
cool connection. Yeah. But can you tell me what next is up for you in the near future that you can talk about?
I'm gonna work on a musical.
Okay.
I'm not saying what, but like I didn't say
Okay.
it.
Okay.
But it's like
Yeah.
it's semi-public, I guess. I don't know. It's
Mhm.
weird. I haven't gotten like the official like you could go talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. On this in this place.
So I'm just
What's
being vague.
your favorite musical? Do you have one?
Oh wow, that's a good question.
Yeah,
You know, Singing in the Rain is pretty legit, actually. That one
it is.
sticks in my mind. All That Jazz. Would you consider that a
Yeah.
musical? Yeah.
I would. I would. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Bob
Yeah.
Fosse, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Those are
All
some
That
good
Jazz
picks.
is sick. It just has a vibe.
Mhm.
Um, might be controversial, but I love La La Land. Like I do love
Yep.
it. Yeah. I
Mhm.
know people sort of like love and hate it. Tick Tick Boom, I liked as well.
Yep.
Chicago is a great one.
Chicago's a classic.
The Lion King, the original. Like
Mhm.
if you
Mhm.
count Disney movies as musicals,
Yeah.
they are all
Totally.
musicals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that one's badass. I really love The Lion King.
Mhm.
Aladdin too. Yeah,
Mhm.
those are some of
Aladdin
my
was
favorites.
one of my favorite. Yeah, from the Disney
Yeah,
ones.
I used to sing Whole New World all the time.
Same. So I get you. I
It's a
get you.
catchy song.
It is. You would like, if you like La La Land, you'd like the movies of Jacques Demy because he was a huge inspiration for La La Land. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
my
I'll write that
suggestion for
down
you.
actually. Jack
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Demi. Oh, I'm getting.
Demy.
Oh, I see him. Yeah, like French
Mm-hmm.
director and lyricist.
And a lyricist. So there you go.
Oh yeah, someone
Yeah,
recommended the umbrellas to
it's gonna
me.
make you sob. I promise you. It's
Whoa,
so happy
I'm
and then
ready
it
for.
isn't. So
I want a good cry, so I'm ready.
there you go.
That's so funny.
I
You're the second person to bring that up. This
it's
movie, like, or this director. Yeah, that's
yeah.
crazy. That's the
He's
universe talking to me.
he's one of my favorites. You'd also like the young girls of Rush 4. I heard that the shutters in the city of Rush 4, they were painted all these bright colors for the movie and they kept it that way to this day. So I'm
Oh
like, that's so
wow,
beautiful. Yeah.
that is
I
cool. It's really
yeah.
cool. Oh wow,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
can't wait to see him. I'm gonna watch him.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know. Let me know. And last question. I know I have some listeners on here who want to pursue film full time. So I'm wondering if you could give one tip to an aspiring filmmaker. What would that be?
Like finish the project and then move to the next and finish another project and then move on to the next. Cause like
Hmm.
I know like there's a tendency to like want it all to be like super perfect and like sometimes filmmakers can be pretty precious and I get that. I'm
Hmm.
precious as well sometimes. That's my dog. You hear her?
Yeah.
Susie, Susie. All right,
Susie's
so
like
like
enough.
I know, right? Now she heard a dog bark in the distance. All right, so
Oh.
like um so yeah, I'm precious too, but like I think like completing a project sometimes has more
Hmm.
value than like waiting forever for it to complete, because it can kind of delay you, like, because you'll learn something from like the project you complete that you can
Hmm.
apply to the next project, and and I feel like if you just have that momentum of just like keep making things, like
Hmm.
it'll help you kind of get there,
Hmm.
because completion of work is kind of like how you form a body of work, and like
Hmm.
it's really hard for people to envision like what kind of filmmaker you are unless you have a pre-existing body of work. So like once you have like a body of work, people can start to see like, oh, I understand what this guy does. Like because when
Hmm.
I started making movies, or started getting like more in it, I've had quite a few shorts. I had quite a few commercials. I had quite a few music videos. Like there was like a vast body of work to support the idea that I could direct a movie, you know. So like that was a big part of it. So like I think even if it's just making stuff with your friends, I mean the Duplass brothers famously just had like a, you know, like they were part of that mumblecore scene, but they just did kind of
Yep.
like video camera, like digital video camera movies, you know, with their friends, and they kept making them and kept making them, and it worked, you know. Like now they're like they make tons of stuff, and even Greta Gerwig came out of that scene, you know. So like
Totally.
so just making stuff is really it, you know. Like go make stuff and finish it, and then move on to the next, you know, and then take what you learned and apply it.
I love that. I think that's so applicable to any sort of creatives. I mean, I love that piece of advice for myself, you know, or anybody
Hmm.
that's involved in the arts. So yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
there's a
beautiful.
huge value to finishing something, you know, even if it's like imperfect. I mean, a lot of times the medium that um, we love for its imperfections, you know, like, you know, at the time that the medium exists, it's probably like, oh, this thing is beautiful and perfect, but as time passes, the flaws show, you know, like VHS at the time, like, you know, like, oh, this is cutting edge, you know, but now we look
Yeah.
at it and what we do and love is reminisce on the imperfections and the texture of it, right? Like we love
Yes.
that it doesn't feel perfect. Film is similar, like tapes and vinyl versus, you know, a really polished MP4, you know, whatever. Like
Yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah.
it's like imperfections are like kind of part of the joy, I guess, you know,
Yeah.
and sometimes like I watch like a movie now, like if it's something shot like for Netflix, you know, not no hate on Netflix, I want to work with them all the time, whatever. But like, you know, there's this kind of baked in look sometimes that's like very like
Yeah.
clean and like almost the imperfections have been stripped out, you know, because everyone's like pursuing the perfect image. And I think like sometimes it's good to just have a little imperfection because then it feels better, you know, like people, you know, it feels more organic and like I don't know. So yeah, just embrace imperfection too. Like just be comfortable with it.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to finish this. You even got the essence of what I want to talk about when it comes to film. So thank you for that. And I
Yeah.
could talk to you all day, but yeah, thank you for coming on. It was such an
Oh yeah.
honor. I would love it if you
Thanks,
came
man.
back.
Yeah, maybe on my next movie I'll pop in if you guys will have me.
Please. I would love to have you back. Can you tell the people where they can find you and keep up with more of your work?
Yeah, I'm pretty like I'm on the Instagrams, Chris Merc, which is KrisMerc on Instagram, and then I feel like IMDb got my stuff.
Yep.
You could take a peek there. You could just Google my name,
Yeah.
Kristian Mercado, Kristianmercado. I just assume there will be a name here somewhere.
Absolutely. It'll be
Maybe I have like a
everywhere.
little bouncing ball, like writing it
Yes.
out.
Yeah, yeah.
I would love that.
I'll tell my team. They'll work on it. And amazing. And
um,
if people wanna watch If You Were the Last, that's gonna be on, or that is on Peacock. So,
Peacock, yeah, it's right
hmm
there. Boop.
yep.
Yeah, definitely watch it on Peacock. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
hmm
Or you know, and you know, drop a little love on Letterbox. You could even if you don't love it,
Yes.
put in a sarcastic review. Do it.
Something, anything. Well,
Anything.
amazing. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye.